So are Democrats doomed in the next presidential election? Not so fast. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So as a lifelong Democrat, I've long been familiar with the circular firing squad. We Democrats, we love to stand around and wring our hands and worry, don't we? As well we should. A lot is at stake in this next election. On the one hand, if the Democrats have a strong election, are able to take back the House and the Senate, or hold on to the Senate as it is, and retain the presidency, then we could actually perhaps start to whittle away at some of the damage that the Supreme Court has been doing to our country. And we might be able to address some of the outrageous anti-abortion and anti-voting rights legislation that's been passed in a number of states. Frankly, we're so close that if we can just get a little bit more across that line, then we stand to be in control once again of both chambers of commerce and the presidency, and hopefully be in a position where Kyrsten Sinema is no longer a member of the Senate, and Joe Manchin no longer has the ability to essentially stop any kind of real progress. In the alternative, though, we have an election where Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell take control again, and the radical Republicans who've been running Kevin McCarthy ragged get even more power. That's a scary thought. So this is definitely an election we need to worry about. But there's an increasing amount of data out there that seems to indicate that all is not lost. And in fact, Democrats, if we do our job and run strong campaigns with strong candidates, as we did in 2022, then we could actually find ourselves in the catbird seat again. Well, what are some of those positive stories out there? The first one has to do with demographics. And yes, I know everybody always says, oh, that demographic story, that's been overstated. They've been predicting that Republicans were going to become endangered and there was going to be an emerging Democratic majority as a result of America becoming more and more diverse. But in fact, that is actually happening. As Tom Edsall of the New York Times pointed out, perhaps the most significant development of the 2024 presidential election came out in the census data, which showed that in the period from 2016 to 2022, 6 years, the number of white people in America without college degrees, essentially the core of Donald Trump and the Republican Party support, fell by 2.1 million people. At the same time, the number of white people who've graduated from college, a group that has increasingly voted Democratic and is absolutely repelled by the right-wing culture war that the Republicans wage, grew by 13.3 million. That means that, to put it bluntly, there are more of us than them, and we're growing faster than they are. And in fact, they're not only not growing, they're actually decreasing in size. And you wonder why Republicans are so adamant about trying to stop people from voting. And I can tell you, as someone who's watched the impact of demographics up close and how they just change the political landscape, this is something that goes above and beyond any kind of partisan bickering. And Republicans know this is a problem for them too. Again, it's why they've been so focused on making it hard to vote and on doing things like gerrymandering, but it's also reflected in their constant talk about how, oh, we're actually doing better among Hispanics, for example, than we were in the past. A claim that, by the way, has been largely disproven by the Washington Monthly. The second big piece of news that should be exciting to the Democrats comes from, of all places, the Supreme Court. Many of us breathed a sigh of relief when the Supreme Court issued its ruling on the Alabama redistricting case. That case was essentially a challenge to a gerrymandered congressional map, which made it so that Alabama had only one majority black district, resulting in every other district in the state going Republican. Well, in a surprise decision, I have to say, one that many people seemed nonplussed by, the Supreme Court held that that decision was unconstitutional and a violation of the law. That, in fact, they'd have to create another majority-minority district in Alabama, resulting in what will likely be 2 Democratic districts there, and essentially creating a net shift in that state of -1 Republican, plus one Democrat for a net swing of 2. Now you might say, well, that's just one seat in one state. But the ramifications of this ruling are huge. Louisiana has a similar case going through the courts right now with almost the exact same facts. And now, based upon the Supreme Court's ruling, it's likely Democrats will prevail there, earning them another seat, essentially taking one away from the Republicans and giving one to the Democrats. And these aren't the only states where similar cases are winding their way through the courts. You could see similar results in Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and even Texas. Does this mean that I'm suddenly a huge fan of the Supreme Court's jurisprudence on the Voting Rights Act? Certainly not. But it does mean that this gives us the ability to counter and maybe improve upon our position, while the Republicans in North Carolina, frankly, are going to try to take away some seats from us there, thanks to the shift in their state Supreme Court. Finally, I would not be surprised to see some changes in Wisconsin now that the Democrats have taken control of that court. The Republicans have been running the table with gerrymandered districts there for so long. A lot could be done by the state court reviewing the gerrymander that the Republicans have used to keep them in control, despite the fact that they are not the majority there. So we have good news overall coming to us in the redistricting area, thanks to the court's ruling. Finally, it's the economy. I mean, people talk about it's the economy stupid. You know, that was Bill Clinton's campaign message back in 1992. And people, for some reason, view Joe Biden very negatively on the economy. That's why President Biden, wisely, I think, has decided to go directly after this issue. He actually has a very strong economic record to tout, much stronger than Trump's, actually. And economists overall are agreeing more and more that a recession is unlikely and that the surprisingly robust economic growth that the United States has been experiencing should continue into the future. What's more is inflation has been cooling and real wages have actually been increasing for the last couple of months. In fact, the famous misery index is at a nearly all-time low. And manufacturing, thanks largely to the policies that the Democrats and President Biden have pushed through, such as the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Semiconductor Act, are actually creating a surge of construction and manufacturing, something that did not happen under Donald Trump, despite his claims that he was going to do that. All of this is going to become clearer and more evident as we go forward through this campaign season. And we as Democrats, we're going to have a lot to tout. Exactly the kind of things that people want to see. So rather than being negative about the challenges we have, and we do have challenges, I'm not going to say we don't have difficult things to address. I mean, we've got a difficult Senate map. President Biden is older and relatively unpopular at this point. But when you look at the big picture, we have a lot of advantages going forward. And as long as we do the work that is necessary to get our message out and to get people to the polls, we could actually be sitting in an even more favorable position at this point in 2025. Well, if you want to see another video where I talk about how completely wrong the Republicans are when it comes to economics, check out this video over here. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.